Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. We are closed today, but streaming a pre-recorded service online. My name is Bryan Bauer, and I am your student minister this year. I serve in the care of our lead minister, Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore, and our associate ministers, Reverend David Carl Olson, who together with our member Paul Carbone has been on site this week in Minneapolis, and Reverend Megan Henry, who has just returned from the West Bank. We are a leaderful people, with leadership provided by ministers, many of our congregational members, and even our staff. And we are a lay-governed congregation with elected officers and trustees who help steward our mission in the world. Whether you're a visitor, a newcomer, or a longtime member of this congregation, you are welcome here. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. In this community, we use science, reason, and an open heart to explore life's many mysteries. To learn more about this congregation and Unitarian Universalism, please visit our welcome desk in the lobby or go to our website, UUCSR.org. This spring, I will be leading a series of what I'm calling adult Bible classes here at Shelter Rock. I realize that for many UUs, the Bible was a source of religious or spiritual harm and trauma, but I want to offer the chance to diffuse the bomb, so to speak, in a safe environment. We can take it apart and learn enough that it can't harm us anymore. Or maybe we can find the pieces we like and build a new device out of the components, one that helps or heals instead of harms. With the building closed, we will not be meeting for lunch today. But the next time that we do, you'll find information sheets about these classes on all the tables that explain the classes a little more. It's just a single page, and at the bottom are 4 possible topics for us to cover. If you're interested in the classes, just rank which of those classes you would be most interested from 1 to 4, 1 being the most interested, and return the sheets to the baskets in the social hall or on the welcome desk. These sheets will also be available on the welcome desk for the next few weeks, or you can access an online version in the new Quest. The VEACH annual meeting will be held online. Members should check their email for a notification for the congregation and with a modified agenda and instructions for registering and attending. Starting at 1 p.m., the VEACH annual meeting will feature interactive roundtable conversations with Minister Janae and several VEACH grantee leaders, including from here on Long Island. Congregation members can begin this new year together with VEACH grantees in discussion about how they are addressing homelessness, immigration, economic justice, and mass incarceration. Join us in the social hall on Friday, January 30th, for the midnight run as we prepare food, sort clothing, and compile toiletry kits for those in need. This is an all-ages volunteer event. Midnight Run is a volunteer-based organization with a mission to bridge the gap between the housed and those experiencing homelessness. And although the building is closed today, you can still bring in your donations all week, even up until 5:30 p.m. on Friday when the event begins. We are asking for donations, volunteers to prepare food, sort clothing, and compile toiletry kits, and volunteers who would like to drive senior seminar teens and our young adults as they embark on a journey of kindness and giving to a community in need that is close to home. On Saturday, January 31st, UUCSR's Social Justice Committee presents their fundraiser for Jamaica disaster relief from 1:30 to 4 p.m. in the social hall. Come for an afternoon of potluck and dancing, and a chance to break bread together. All proceeds will benefit the World Central Kitchens to stay by the side of those who need our support now than ever. Please bring a dish, but it doesn't have to be Jamaican. Music and Performing Arts at Shelter Rock presents A Time to Sing for Non-Singers, Have you been told that you can't carry a tune? Do family members give you that look when you sing happy birthday? Do you sing very quietly or not at all in public because you are afraid you will embarrass yourself? If you answered yes to any of these, then this is the time to sing. Join Leah Wool to explore the basics of singing through group singing of hymns, folk songs, and things you want to sing. This will be a safe, non-judgmental time to explore your voice as you sing with others. Classes are free and open to all and meet Sundays, February 1st, 15th, 22nd, and March 1st at 1 p.m. in the choir room downstairs. And finally, our resident keyboard artist, Nathaniel, has graciously programmed a series of chamber music concerts to inaugurate our new Steinway grand piano. Our inaugural concert on our new piano is Sunday, February 8th at 1:30 p.m. here in the worship room. At Shelter Rock, we aspire to be a loving religious community where we can grow spiritually and build a more just and joyful world. You are most welcome to join us on the journey. Thank you. Now it gives me great pleasure to invite to the pulpit Shanti Flott to assist me with the chalice lighting.
We hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and celebration of the life we share together. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Dr. King.
We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought to be maladjusted.
Hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that.
We must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation.
The foundation of such a method is love.
Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and our lowly deeds which precipitate and perpetuate war.
One day we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal.
We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means.
We shall hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope.
Please join in singing opening hymn number 1046 in your teal hymnal.
Where bright angel feet
Please join me in the words of affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, this do we affirm and covenant with each other. Every month during our worship, we share an opportunity toward living our Unitarian Universalist values in the world by acts of generosity to bring about positive change. This Sunday, we are invited to support World Central Kitchen to help use the power of food to nourish the world. WCK is the first to the front lines, providing fresh meals in response to humanitarian, climate, and community crises. World Central Kitchen is in Jamaica providing emergency relief to communities impacted by Hurricane Melissa. With over 500 meals served globally, WCK continues to bring relief one plate at a time. Your donation today fuels this mission, helping WCK reach more people faster when they need it most. As you're mostly all well aware, we have multiple ways to donate. There's a QR code on the reverse side of your order of service every week when you are here, along with instructions that will take you to the donation page of our website. Or you can simply visit UUCSR.org, look for quick links in menu at the top right corner of the screen, and click Give under that. You can also send to our PayPal account, donate@uucsr.org. And of course, you can leave a check or cash in the donation box in the lobby when we're open. But if you leave a check, please write January offering in the memo. Please join us for the response to the offering, gray number 402 from UI Receive. I now invite you into a moment of prayer, meditation, or silent reflection. Let us take a moment to reflect on how many of our neighbors in the region and throughout the country are terrified these days. Economic concerns have evolved into grave situations, and meanwhile, many are frightened that doom will descend on them at a moment's notice. They are being treated like prey by those who wish to be predators, and we have to do more than pray for them. We need to truly reflect on and consider their humanity, equal to ours in reality, but not in current practice, and what we can do to support them, but more importantly, to stop this situation and to bring about a lasting peace, to create a world we can be happy to be in and to leave to our children. I invite you now to light a candle of joy, sorrow, memory, or hope at home as the Spirit moves you.
The reading is from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s A Time to Break Silence speech. We can no longer afford to worship the God of hate or bow before the altar of retaliation. The oceans of history are made turbulent by the ever-rising tides of hate, and history is cluttered with the wreckage of nations and individuals that pursued this self-defeating path of hate. As Arnold Toynbee says, love is the ultimate force that makes for a saving choice of life and good against the damning choice of death and evil. Therefore, the first hope in our inventory must be the hope that love is going to have the last word. We are now faced with the fact, my friends, that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked and dejected, with a loss of opportunity. The tide in the affairs of men do not remain at flood, it ebbs. We may cry out desperately for time to pause in her passage, but time is adamant to every plea and rushes on. Over the bleached bones and jumbled residues of numerous symbolizations are written the pathetic words, too late. There is an invisible book of life that faithfully records our vigilance or our neglect. Omar Khayyam is right. The moving finger writes, and having writ moves on. We still have a choice today: nonviolent coexistence or violent co-annihilation. We must move past indecision to action. If we do not act, we shall surely be dragged down the long, dark, and shameful corridors of time reserved for those who possess power without compassion, might without morality, and strength without sight. Now let us begin. Now let us rededicate ourselves to the long and bitter but beautiful struggle for a new world. This is the calling of the children of God, and our brothers and sisters wait eagerly for our response. Shall we say the odds are too great? Shall we tell them the struggle is too hard? Will our message be that the forces of American life militate against the arrival as full humans, and we send our deepest regrets? Or will there be another message of longing, of hope, of solidarity with their yearnings, of commitment to their cause, whatever the cost? The choice is ours, and though we must prefer it otherwise, we must choose in this crucial moment of human history. And if we will only make the right choice, we will be able to transform this pending cosmic elegy into a creative psalm of peace. If we will make the right choice, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our world into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. If we will but make the right choice, we will be able to speed up the day all over America and all over the world, when justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
As several of you already know, and some of you may already be sick of hearing about, I went to Union Theological Seminary in New York City for divinity school. And Union is all just one small city block in Manhattan, in the neighborhood of Morningside Heights, just west of Harlem, and just north of the rest of the Columbia University system. And across the street from Union Not from its front entrance on Broadway, but across Claremont Avenue is Riverside Church, which dominates that city block behind Union. Now, on the northwest corner of Union City Block, there's a building for student and faculty housing. And for just under 100 years, including my first year or two at Divinity School, Union had a very similar building on the Riverside Block, just across the street. This was more housing for faculty and students until Union sold it to Riverside just a few years ago. Until then, half of all the residences were there, and visiting a professor or classmate at home meant a 50% chance of crossing the street to do so. Those housed on Union's block only had to go downstairs to the lobby, and then down the hall toward the library and classrooms, and they could get to class and avoid any rain or cold or traffic on the way. For those living on the Riverside block, meanwhile, there was actually a city access tunnel for pipe maintenance, which led from the basement of the building across the street and opened out just under James Chapel on the campus side. Nobody had to get wet. And so Riverside often felt almost like an extension of campus. And we often ended up learning almost as much about its history as we did of Union's. It would be incredibly difficult to write a history of either one without even mentioning the other. Today's reading, thank you, Shanti, was from a speech Dr. King gave at Riverside Church in 1967 on April 4th, exactly 1 year before his assassination. It's called A Time to Break Silence and is also sometimes referred to as his Beyond Vietnam speech. In this speech, he spoke from a belief that a time comes when silence is betrayal, and that now such a time had come. He said that he had, in just the 2 years prior, moved to break the betrayal of his own silences and to speak from the burning of his own heart in calling for a departure from the destruction of Vietnam. And for this, he said, his wisdom was questioned under claims such as peace and civil rights don't mix. However, he said that such people neither knew him, his calling, his work, nor even the world in which they lived. Those critics thought he was losing focus, but he said, if anything, the issues had become clearer to him, and he listed 7 reasons for bringing Vietnam into the field of his moral vision, among which were that all of the advances of the poverty program in the early 1960s evaporated when bodies and other resources were thought more needfully distributed across the world. But he also considered it to be a major civil rights issue that poor Black citizens were disproportionately represented among those who were sent overseas, ostensibly to guarantee liberties in Southeast Asia, which they had not found in Southwest Georgia and East Harlem. He was also stymied by the question of how to convince anyone not to think of violence as a solution when the most powerful country in the world was doing exactly that. But even more urgently, he felt the health and the life of this country were at stake, and said that if America's soul becomes totally poisoned, part of the autopsy must read Vietnam. And he said he felt a deeper calling to his work for the Brotherhood of Man after receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, but pointed out that when he co-founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference 10 years earlier in 1957, they chose as their motto to save the soul of America. This had been the work of his Christian ministry for some time. And ultimately for him, the relationship of this ministry to the making of peace was so obvious that he sometimes marveled at those who asked him why he was even speaking against the war. This speech is pretty well documented. There are photos of him in the church, and if anyone's interested, I can give you a link to a webpage that not only has the full hour-long speech transcribed, but also has the audio recording of him speaking it. However, what only so many people know about that night is that this speech was not well received by everyone. In fact, apparently, a mob had formed just outside the church who seemed to be waiting for Dr. King to come out. So he was actually, in fact, led out the back of Riverside Church and into the Union Dorm, down into the basement and the access tunnel leading to campus, and finally emerging through Union's main entrance on Broadway. Beyond all past threats, and beyond the turbulent times and the reality of his social location, it would be very hard to argue that the threat to his life is overstated on the night he delivered his Beyond Vietnam speech. As I said before, he would only live 1 year more and not a day longer. In the years since, Union sold the dorm, and access to the campus side of the tunnel has been limited. At this point, only maintenance and facilities staff have any need to go there. There is nothing much of any interest or value under the chapel that anyone can see. And now they have plans for that space, so it seems to include making the tunnel fully inaccessible to anyone without keys and a professional reason for being there. But since I've already graduated, I feel like I can admit that in the 2 years that the space was sitting vacant and awaiting these plans, I often wandered into it, maybe as much as once per week. I have visited a number of holy places of worship and devotion, but I can't think of any space, any shrine that has seemed more sacred to me on a visceral level than this hallway. First of all, it is what it is. It's an access tunnel. It's not even really meant for pedestrians, but for adventurous graduate students, often it's an easy choice to make throughout January and February. But the hallway is very narrow, and if you're over 6 feet tall, you have to duck. And you have to move around the pipes no matter how skinny you are. Are they gas pipes or water pipes? They're none of your business if you don't already know. Keep moving. So it's more than a liminal space, which I love, but one that almost naturally carries you across as if you were going down a slide. It doesn't feel right to stand still. In my visits to this hallway, I would walk from one end to the other and I would meditate. I would contemplate. I would even pray. But what I found it very difficult to do was to walk slowly. Now, add to this the threat of violence behind you, and the wind would be fully at your back, even with a measured pace in your walk. Now, I don't have a dogma, but one of the core tenets of my personal beliefs is in the importance of telling the truth in service of the greater good, even if it means taking on personal risk, including to your life. So it's not very surprising that this humble hallway would call very deeply to my spirit. A major part of Dr. King's reasoning for connecting war abroad with racial injustice and poverty at home was a commitment to a higher law, a divine and moral law which challenges human law when it goes astray from greater truths. We, as UUs, may not share the same belief in the Christian God that Dr. King had, but I believe We share that moral vision which condemns evils such as the horrors of chattel slavery, regardless of its legal status. Both the Unitarians and the Universalists were well represented among 19th century abolitionists. And 2 Unitarian ministers were among the Secret Six who funded John Brown. Now, if you read through the entirety of Dr. King's speech, you can begin to get an idea of how he provoked such a reaction. Some of the things he said might provoke no less a response now, either still or again. For example, he went on to say something that was even more disturbing, that Vietnam is but a symptom of a far deeper malady within the American spirit. And if we ignore this sobering reality, we will find ourselves organizing clergy and laymen concerned committees for the next generation. Certainly, this was prophetic. He also added that we have seen emerge a pattern of suppression which has now justified the presence of U.S. military advisors in Venezuela. This need to maintain social stability for our investments accounts for the counter-revolutionary action of American forces in Guatemala. And he said plainly that the Western arrogance of feeling that it has everything to teach others and nothing to learn from them is not just. Adding, it is a sad fact that because of our comfort, complacency, a morbid fear of communism, and our proneness to adjust to injustice, the Western nations that initiated so much of the revolutionary spirit of our modern world have now become the arch anti-revolutionaries. And as I mentioned above, King mentioned that the motto, "To save the soul of America," was part of the founding of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. But he also said they quickly realized that America would never be free or saved from itself until the descendants of its slaves were loosed completely from the shackles they still wear. Now, many enslaved in Texas famously didn't learn about emancipation until June 19th, 1865, Juneteenth, over 2 years after Lincoln's proclamation. But others found themselves indebted or somehow tied to the lands that they and their families had always worked, such as the Waterford Plantation in St. Charles Parish, Louisiana, well into the 1960s. So, King was hardly speaking in hyperbole. And while the civil rights era certainly brought about change, there is much unfinished work. A little over 10 years ago, Michelle Alexander published her book, The New Jim Crow, which explains how the 13th Amendment creates an exception for slavery, except as punishment for a crime. And in the wake of the movement for civil rights, the Nixon administration created a war on drugs that gave plausible deniability to racist motivations. And during his presidency, prison rates skyrocketed nearly 800%. What this means in practice, according to a report by the Sentencing Project, is that half of those in federal prison are incarcerated for a drug offense, and 2/3 of those in prison for drug offenses are people of color. And according to a joint report by the American Civil Liberties Union and the University of Chicago Law School Global Human Rights Clinic from June 2022, called Captive Labor Exploitation of Incarcerated Workers, of the 1.2 million people incarcerated in state and federal prisons, nearly 800,000, that's 2/3, are prison laborers, most of them by force. Most of these workers, about 80%, are employed in facilities maintenance and operations, such as janitorial duties, food preparation, grounds maintenance, and laundry, tasks which keep the institutions that imprison them running. And in Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, and Texas, over 10,000 incarcerated workers, most of whom are Black, are assigned to agricultural work under threat of punishment on penal plantations or prison farms, growing some of the same crops on the same land where enslaved people toiled 150 years ago. In 5 of these states, incarcerated workers are paid nothing at all for this work, which generates millions of dollars in revenue for the state every year. And just to be clear, I want to say that there is very little in history that can compare to the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade and the continuations of chattel slavery within the countries that already had many when the Atlantic trade was abolished. However horrible one might try to envision it in their minds, there are 100 stories or more to embarrass your very naive imaginations. But in a great many cases, we are talking about the actual descendants, which means that any idea that slavery was a thing in the past and now their children are free is not exactly true. It's not even particularly true. This dreadful revelation has seemingly been received as more of a tragic curiosity than an outrage which spurs action. Whatever energy was originally stirred at the time, it feels as if that momentum has been lost. But if we know that slavery still exists, where are the abolitionists? Is anyone noisily dedicated to the issue of prison labor in the United States? All the groups that I could find online, for example, centered on finishing abolition, have apparently lost funding in the past few years or otherwise disbanded or discontinued their activities. It seems like some organizations are much more focused on slavery in other parts of the world, which is also admirable. But a curious thing to ignore in one's own backyard, but otherwise make the focus of your own work. For some groups, they may be focused on a very specific region, and often one that the founders have a personal connection to. That makes sense. But I mean to focus internationally, nondescript, but nationally, not at all, except perhaps as a potential customer base. And to be sure, these things are connected. A country that built itself with slavery and became very rich would create at least some citizens who never fully lost the belief that you can always just buy a person, especially if you never fully stopped. Like an addict still sneaking off for their drug of choice. An international trade facilitated by digital transactions could only help to exacerbate the nightmare of human trafficking. However, those government agencies which ostensibly would catch, prevent, and prosecute human trafficking in this country, and without whom those nonprofit organizations are a little bit helpless, have become more than problematic. They have become an indelible part of the nightmare. Their preoccupation is now with undocumented people among us. Their tactics amount to kidnapping, and their sense of due process is disappearance. We often have no idea where these people end up, and when we do, we learn that they were taken to countries that they have never been to for who knows what purpose. The island nation of Palau has agreed to take 75 deported from the US who have never been charged with a crime to live and work in Palau, helping address local labor shortages in needed occupations, according to their president? Are we selling slaves? And meanwhile, people are being grabbed for being vaguely Hispanic looking, regardless of citizenship status. Sometimes it gets sorted out after a few hours in custody. Now, with the uptake in hateful sentiments levied against Somalis or Haitians, can we really assume that Black American citizens are perfectly safe? Have they ever been before? And can we be surprised by the irony that indigenous people are being seized and made to prove that they belong here too? If you think these things aren't all connected, rest assured that most anyone who wants to see every brown face removed from the country also wants to see every Black body in chains again. We may need to abolish more than we had bargained for. Brad Lander, former comptroller of NYC and recent mayoral candidate, has called for the abolishment of ICE as a lawless organization. Most people polled seem to be opposed to the existence of ICE, and it's hardly an institution. If it were a person, we still wouldn't let it rent a car yet. It's not old enough. Dr. King had conviction in a shared calling of all people to be the children of God, more than to be merely citizens of nations, and in that same speech said, "I speak as a citizen of the world, for the world, as it stands aghast at the path we have taken." And he said that the situation is one in which we must be ready to turn sharply from our present ways. And he said, we are called to speak for the weak, for the voiceless, for the victims of our nation, and for those it calls enemy. For no document from human hands can make these humans any less our brothers and sisters. And he said, meanwhile, we in the churches and synagogues have a continuing task while we urge our government to disengage itself from a disgraceful commitment. We must be prepared to match actions with words by seeking out every creative method of protest possible. And he said, these are times for real choices and not false ones. We are at the moment when our lives must be placed on the line if our nation is to survive its own folly. Everyone of humane convictions must decide on the protest that best suits their convictions, but we must all protest. It is a tall order, and it is frightening. And we probably all know some people who are afraid in this moment, contemplating whether they need to flee to safety from the only country they've ever known and called home. But it is evident from the surge of activity in Minnesota, it could not be sustained nationwide all at once. They need to wear us down one by one, so we must not let them. And it is beyond abundantly clear that there are those in this country who want a law which protects but does not bind them, while binding but never protecting their perceived enemies. Negotiation won't solve this. Pointing out hypocrisy won't solve this. More funding and more training certainly won't solve this. This doesn't just end well on its own, but I am convinced that we can do it. Even us here today, however few may be, we can be a part of that. And I know that you also believe in standing up to speak the truth, even when it is dangerous. When Unitarian Senator Mike Gravel gave the full Pentagon Papers to the Beacon Press to publish, and the Nixon administration retaliated, it was the Veach program and this congregation, albeit in a different building and in a different town, who helped save the UUA from bankruptcy. I'm proud to be a part of this place, and I'm certain that you can continue to make me proud. This month's worship theme, and no, I didn't forget, is practicing resistance. So remember that practice makes perfect, and that practice doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done. In the last paragraph, before the conclusion to his speech, which Shanti read for us, Dr. King prays that this call for a worldwide fellowship that lifts neighborly concern beyond one's tribe, let us hope that this spirit will become the order of the day. Amen. Please join us in singing our closing hymn, number 276. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our worship is over. Let the service begin.